Hi guys, my name is Kunal Verma. I am a registered migration agent at Aussizz Group Melbourne CBD branch. I am going live today to discuss the requirements of the state nomination as well as the region nomination for all the states of Australia as the changes which has happened on the 16th of November. There were quite a few states which has not released the requirements straight away, after the changes which were supposed to be rolled out for the new subclass 491, and they've also made a few changes for the 190 visa requirements with a few states. So I would be discussing the requirements of different subclasses, as I said, for 491 and 190 across different states. And there was an invitation round yesterday for 189, which I will also be discussing about. That how many people have, what points have they invited people yesterday, and how many people have been invited across different occupations. Once I'm done with discussing these requirements, I will be taking questions from you guys as well. So we will be covering, as I said, quite a few different states. If you have got your questions, regarding any of these state nomination requirement or the regional nomination requirements, you can put that in the comment section, and we will try and answer as many questions which you guys would have. So to start with, I would talk about the 189 visa invitation round which has happened yesterday. So after the changes which occurred on the 16th of November, yesterday was the first round when they were supposed to invite applicants with the increased points which got changed on the 16th of November. So the invitation for 189 happened only for 95 points and above for few occupations such as computer network and system engineer, and for other non-prorated occupations. So if you had obviously 95 points, which eventually was 85 on the last invitation, you would have got the invitation in this round. Now, the number of invitations we were anticipating were not actually as much as we have got, and obviously quite a few people have got the invite, as I said, because the points requirement on which the department has invited was 95 and above points. Not that accountants I have seen have even been invited on 100 points. It's been even more than that on what the invitations have been given to accountants. But the change what has been seen yesterday was there were quite a few invitations given for 491 family sponsorship visas. So the invitations we have got was for 100 points, wherein someone who has got a pro-rata occupation or a non-pro-rata, they have been invited with 100 points. So when I say 100 points, that's 85 points of the applicant plus 15 points for the 491 family sponsorship. So if you have obviously received an invitation, you would know how many points you've got it, but for some people who actually will be meeting these requirements or are actually having these points, consider if you're going to increase your points from 95 to 100 sooner, then definitely you can seek invitation coming from the family sponsorship, because department is promoting the invitations for 491 family sponsorship visas. Now, as I mentioned that 189, there were not a lot of invitations which came across, because they've invited people who have in fact got 95 or above points only. Now the occupations we have got invitation was computer network and system engineer and the security specialist, wherein they have all got 95 above points. A number of invitations is not yet known to us, definitely, because the department has not yet released the numbers of how many people have they invited. But looking at the number, the invitation point score of 95, I don't believe so that there would be a lot of invitations given to applicants. So it could be a number again which was there for last one, probably anything between 200 to 300 people which have been invited. And the total number of seats for 189 visa have obviously been reduced in this year. So pretty much this trend may continue for the next few months as well, wherein there would be one big invitation round the way it has happened in October, which we can expect in the next 3 months, when they would be inviting people who would have 90 points as well. So if you are having an occupation which is, even as I said, an occupation which is a pro-rata occupation for accounting, IT, engineering, or a non-pro-rata occupation which could be nursing, teaching, or any IT occupation like security specialist, you could always expect an invitation coming your way, with 90 points, which could be expected in the coming months, probably from January onwards. But as I said, if you have a family member, you were not thinking of taking that as an option, I believe this is the time you should consider that as an option, because family sponsorship visas have been given at 100 points. So if you have got 85 points of your own, still don't see you would get an invite. Pretty much with 100 points you can see this invitation coming, and in future this can even get down to around 95 points as well, wherein you can see an invitation coming your way. Now the idea behind doing a live session today was obviously to cover up the state nomination visas, because few states have come up with their requirements, and those requirements could be beneficial for a lot of applicants who are residing in those states. And definitely it's more likely a situation where you are, if you're living in another state and you're looking forward to meet the requirement of a different state, then you might have to relocate to that state where you're looking for the state from which you're looking for the state nomination, or that has to be either to work there or to study there. So I will start with Victoria itself, because obviously Victoria state has come up with the requirements, and Victoria is one of the biggest states wherein a lot of people are actually studying here and are keen to obviously work towards the requirements of state nomination. So 190 for Victoria is actually beneficial for occupations like engineering technologist, for occupations like nursing, for occupation which includes agriculture, studies for people who have done, physiotherapist, and for teaching occupations. Now people who have actually got these occupations have got work experience, or they are a graduate from here in Victoria or in Australia, then they can literally look at applying for the state nomination, and these options do not literally require high points. So if you're not able to make enough points, then 190 from Victoria could be one of the options which you can consider, provided you have occupations such as an engineering technologist. So for graduates who have studied in Australia and they are residing in Victoria, they've got a job offer with themselves for as an engineering technologist, then they can look forward to apply for this option by just having 60 points of their own. So 5 points you get for the state nomination 190 visa, and if you've got 60 points, you can still be eligible to get an invitation for this permanent visa. There are other requirements that you have to be a recent graduate. So you must be a recent graduate if you're applying as on the pathway of a recent graduate, and you should have been graduated within the last 2 years. As I mentioned, for occupations such as engineering technologist, you have to have a job offer in your nominated occupation. So you have to have a job offer as an engineering technologist, then you can apply for the state nomination, and the job offer should be valid for the next 6 months. Now the good thing is they also consider part-time job offer letter. So if it is for a permanent role and it's for the part-time position, then it is still acceptable. It has to be 20 hours a week. So if you don't know about this option, I would request you to contact our office and obviously discuss this option with us, and we are more than happy to give out the other requirements which might associate and can get you permanent residency without being able to make points such as 85, 90 or 95. So that's for Victoria state nomination 190 visa. What exactly has changed is 491, which got introduced by Victoria, and they have made a change which would benefit a lot of people, I would say, because any other state which we are talking about here, such as I'm going to talk about after this, when I'm going to finish the Victoria regional requirement, there are a lot of states which basically have a requirement of studying there or working there. But if you consider Victoria regional requirements, what they are asking for is just a job offer letter which should be valid for the next 12 months. So what exactly Victoria state regional requirements are: if you have an occupation which is on either of the skilled occupation list, so it does not really matter, you have it on the medium to long term list, or a short term skilled occupation list, or a regional occupation list, what you need to have is a job offer in your nominated occupation which should be valid for the next 12 months. The job offer has to be for a full-time position with minimum 38 hours per week. So if you're working already in regional, you are eligible to apply as far as your employer is happy to give you an offer for the next 12 months, because that's one of the requirements regional Victoria has. You need to have the job offer from a business which should be at least 2 years old. So I can't literally apply for for this option if the business has opened up just last year. So the business has to be at least 2 years old, and also you should have been hired on a merit basis. Now, when I say merit basis, means the company should advertise the role, to seek people from the local market and into the advertisement portals. Once they would advertise the role, you have to make an application accordingly, with the through the advertisement, and the state would may verify that information as well by checking that if the role was being advertised properly and you have made an application or not. So the idea behind doing all this diligence is to make sure that a genuine applicant is getting the job offer and getting the regional nomination. The most benefited I would say category of applicants in this visa would be accountants, because for accountants it's more 189 is more likely, it's become more of an impossible task, because the points requirement have gone such high that you would not be able to meet those requirements if you if you're chasing that point score. So for accountants who could find this option, for engineers, any occupation, now obviously as I said, they are not restricting this to a specific occupation. They are telling that this could be in any occupation which can apply, and if you're applying in any occupation which is on the skill list, you are eligible to apply for this visa as far as if you've got a job offer. Second point is that you just need 50 points to make this application if you're putting this 491 visa. So again, if you have got higher points, obviously it's an advantage, but the minimum requirement is 50 points to make an application for this visa. There are other requirements which I would literally want to, if you would want to consult any of our office, you can obviously contact us. And so if you're living in any of the state and you see you can get a job offer in the regional area, there is a possibility you have worked here before in regional and then you have relocated to a different state, still not being able to work on the requirements, I reckon this is one of the options which would benefit a lot of applicants now. Now, why is the emphasis going on a 491 visa? Because the government has clearly, stated that they want to move the people out of the metropolitan cities such as Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. So you have to work out on these requirements for the Victorian regional sponsorships, and you can seek an invitation. So when you make an application with them, it takes 12 weeks for them to obviously process your application, and after that they would definitely be able to come out with an outcome whether it's positive if they have done their verifications and everything gone well. All right, so that's for Victoria. Now, a lot of people earlier were eligible to apply for New South Wales state and regional nomination as well, and there has been a very huge announcement what the New South Wales state has made in context of both 190 and 491 visa. So with the 190 visa, they have stated that from January onwards, they will not be inviting anyone who is residing in a different state. So what it means is that you must be living in New South Wales. Now, what other requirements they would come out for 190 has not been rolled out yet, but they would want you to work, stay in New South Wales only if you want to get eligible for 190 from the New South Wales. So after the announcement, they have invited a few people. Hopefully, if there would be another round which would happen this month, they would still be inviting more people. But from January onwards, there will not be any invitations given to people who are living in a different state other than New South Wales for the NSW state nomination visas. There was another change which has happened for New South Wales regional nomination. So with the regional nomination, earlier people who are living in other regional, other states, they were eligible to apply mostly for trade occupations and few engineering occupations. In fact, last year there was also applications open for accountants to apply in Orana and other regional areas in New South Wales. While they were living in a different state like Victoria or South Australia or wherever they were living, they were still eligible to apply. But now they have actually come out with the requirements which would be in effect from January 2020, wherein New South Wales have clearly said that they will, the requirements are being divided into, three categories of applicants who can apply there. Now, the first category for 491 in New South Wales would be someone who is living and working in regional New South Wales. So the requirements which needs to be met, you first have to have your occupation in the New South Wales Stream 1 regional skilled occupation list. So if your occupation is not in that list, while most of the occupations which are on the MLT, SSL and STSO list are actually on that list, but if your occupation is not on the list, you are not eligible to apply for that visa. That's the requirement number one. And the requirement number two is you have been working in a designated regional area in New South Wales in your nominated occupation or a closely related occupation for at least last 12 months. So again, this is all new for applicants who were willing, or those who were thinking that they could apply for NSW regional nomination, because they've clearly said now you have to be living there for at least 12 months and you must be working in your nominated occupation or a closely related occupation for the last 12 months to be eligible to apply for the 491 regional nomination visa from New South Wales. So this is for the people who are actually living in a regional area there, that they're eligible to apply. People who are offshore, so obviously the applicants who are not in Australia and they are still keen to apply for the regional nomination, what's required is you again have to have your occupation in the New South Wales Stream 2 regional skilled occupation list. So there are two lists which the this aggregation has happened in terms of the Stream 1 regional skilled occupation list and Stream 2 regional skilled occupation list. Now for offshore applicants, you have to have your occupation in the Stream 2 regional occupation list. Other than that, you have to meet few requirements, which is that you must be residing outside Australia and you have a job offer for an ongoing employment in a designated. Alright, so yeah, I was just talking about the recently completed study in regional New South Wales. So we have discussed about people who are living and working in the regional New South Wales. Then there are people who have been offshore if they are willing to apply. And then the applicants who are studying in they've recently completed their study in the regional New South Wales. So you have to have your occupation in the New South Wales Stream 2 regional skilled occupation list if you have studied in the New South Wales regional area. You have completed study at an education provider located in the designated regional area. So obviously the study has to be completed in the regional area itself. The study was continuous, meet the study requirement of Australia, and you have lived in a designated regional area in New South Wales while completing the study. And one more very important point is that the study was completed within the last 12 months. So you have to, when you can apply if you have completed the study within the last 12 months. And that's one of the important requirements for people who wants to apply for the regional nomination from there. And the qualification from your study has been assessed. So pretty much if you're applying for the regional nomination, you have to have a skill assessment again in that occupation itself in which you have studied. So the three options which are available for 491 applicants, one is someone who is living and working, again have an occupation on the Stream 1 regional occupation list. Offshore applicants who can look at applying based on a job offer there, or have got 5 or more years of experience, or have a family member can apply, and then someone who has studied for 2 years in the region in New South Wales, they are one of the eligible applicants to apply. Now this occupation, this is for New South Wales. So I've talked about 190 for New South Wales. I've also talked about the 491 for the New South Wales, which is one of the options available for people who are in New South Wales and they are willing to apply. And moving from New South Wales, I'll talk about ACT, which is Canberra Australian Capital Territory. Pretty much it has moved to a regional area as well, because ACT has been declared that it is a regional area. For if you've done studies in ACT, you would be getting 5 extra points towards your study as well. And now they have actually released their occupation list, which would be effective from the January 2020. In fact, I would recommend ACT to a lot of applicants who have their occupation open in ACT skilled occupation list. So they have opened for the applications for both 491 as well as 190 visa. They have set some specific requirements for each of these options if you are willing to apply in ACT. But the benefit would be given to applicants who actually have occupation open in their list. Now the reason why I'm saying it is because most of you would know that ACT has their own matrix, and you have to have high points as per their matrix if you want to apply for the state or the regional nomination. The requirements are as follows: that if you are applying for a 190 in ACT Canberra, you have to have your occupation open in their list, and then you have to have 6 months of full-time experience in that occupation which is open in the ACT skill occupation list to be eligible to apply for 190 visa. So for example, engineering occupations, a lot of trade occupations are open in ACT. Two advantages, as I mentioned: if you have got this occupation open, you straight away get 20 points from the matrix. Second advantage you have is obviously if you've got higher matrix points, your eligibility would be better than someone who has an occupation close in that list. So as I mentioned, trade people who are studying trade, people who have done engineering, a lot of occupations like nursing, they've actually opened up in their state, and definitely they are keen to invite people in those occupations. Now, the requirements for 190 is that you have to obviously pass the matrix and have the highest points. The last invitation for 190 which ACT has given was at 75 points according to their matrix. So irrespective if my EOI points are 65, but according to my ACT matrix I am making 75 points, I can be eligible for 190. But the additional criteria which has got added is you have to have 6 months of work experience in an occupation which is open in their list, and that should be a nominated occupation as well in which you're applying. So if I'm applying in ACT, if I'm a mechanical engineer, if I'm an electronics engineer, and if I've got a job for 6 months full time there, I am definitely able to apply after 6 months. Now the idea is, as I said, higher the points you have in matrix, the eligibility or the possibility of you getting invitation will be much higher. So if I am applying as an engineer, and if I've worked there for 1 year, you get additional points of working for 1 year. If you have worked, if you have lived there for 1 year, then additional points for that as well. If you have studied there for 1 year, you get additional points for that as well. If you have got a family member there, you get additional points for that as well. If you obviously have got a partner who has got an occupation in the skill list and it's open there as well, you get additional points. So pretty much you can come down and see anyone of our migration agents who can advise you on how the matrix works. But again, engineers, trade applicants, it's basically an opportunity for you. If you are not able to meet the 189 requirements, then you should relocate and apply there, because this occupation definitely is going to benefit you in the longer run, and you will be able to make the most of it while you are applying from ACT. So that's for 190. Now for 491, they have set very simple requirements. Again, as I said, if your occupation is open in their list, you have more probability of getting the invitation for 491 as well. So what exactly they are asking for is that you need to have 3 months of part-time experience in any occupation in ACT when you are making an application. So consider I am a mechanical engineer. I have got my occupation open in their list. I've got 20 points for that as per the matrix. I've done a master's in Australia or overseas. I get 15 points for the matrix, and I've got superior English. I get 15 points for that. Now 50 points you already have after 3 months if you have worked part-time there and you're eligible to apply for a 491 straight away. So definitely the way they will be segregating the applicants for 190 and 491 would be by means of when you have got a job offer in your in an occupation open in their list, or you are working in any of the fields. So again, any of the fields could be any work, but it has to be at least 20 hours a week, and that you must have done for 3 months before you're eligible to apply. Now if you want to increase your points, because they have clearly said higher the matrix points, more is the possibility of you getting an invite for 491, then you can go there to study for 1 year, which I said you get points for. Living there, you get points for. Working in any skill, any skill pretty much which is ANSCO level 1 to 3, you get points for. So if you see 50 points as if you made an application with and they're inviting people with that many points, definitely you are eligible after 3 months itself. But again, if you are studying there, working there, all that can add up to points, and then you can still apply for ACT 491 visa. And this is all going to start from January onwards, because they have introduced that list effectively from January for both 491 as well as 190 visa. So that's for ACT Canberra. And again, I didn't mention about the extra points which people would get for the regional study they have done in the past. What exactly has changed on the 16th of November? If you have done study in any of the newly designated regional areas, which is say Perth, Gold Coast, Newcastle, Wollongong, where they have actually made them as the regional areas now, but you have done your study in past in these regional areas, you are eligible to claim 5 extra points towards for your expression of interest. And again, Canberra has also become one of the regional areas, so pretty much that is again an option available for you guys to add up 5 extra points towards your expression of interest. The next state which I would like to mention about is Tasmania. So we have covered Victoria, we have covered New South Wales, we have covered Canberra. Next is Tasmania. I would like to make a mention about. So Tasmania has not made any changes to the requirements, or they've made very little change to what the requirements were before. If you are willing to apply for a 491 in Tasmania, you need to pretty much study there for 1 year. Now that study can be any study, which could be a certificate 3 or above. And when you're making an application, you need to make sure that you have met the requirements which are listed onto the website. So you have to be living there itself. It is preferable because to have, you have been working there, because you are actually showing your commitment towards the state if you are working there as well. So that's again an added advantage if you're working in any skill, or pretty much working in an occupation which may not be a skill. And that would really benefit you to, get the 491 visa just after 1 year of study. So one option is to study in Tasmania for 1 year. That make you eligible for 491 application visa. Then other option for a 491 visa nomination is that you can work for 6 months in any of the skilled occupation as per ANSCO level 1, 2, 3. Now they would invite people for the skill level, ANSCO level experience of 6 months full time, which has to be in ANSCO skill and a skilled occupation ANSCO level 1, 2, 3. But if it's 4 and 5, the employer will have to do the labor market testing. They have to demonstrate why have they tried hiring someone from the local market, because with the skill ANSCO level 4 and 5, you do not have to have exceptional skills which can't be really taken from the local market itself. So if you are working there and they've categorically excluded few occupations, such as if you're working in a petrol station, they would not consider. If you're driving Uber, they will not consider that. If you're pretty much working in some restaurants which are limited service restaurants, they may not consider that. So all these things you have to keep in mind. These days a lot of applicants are literally considering Tasmania as an option. So any point of time, state would also have its limitation to the number of people they will invite. However, if you have been, if you have met the requirements and have done everything in line with what the state has asked for, definitely you will be able to get an approval after you complete the requirements, be it studying for 1 year or working for 6 months full time in any of the skilled occupations level 1, 2, 3. Again, that's the requirement for 491 in Tasmania. If you are willing to apply for a 190, you have to study there for 2 years. Again, tri-course registered study, which should be at least 2 years of study in Tasmania itself, and you are eligible to apply after that for a 190 visa. Again, I'm repeating on the fact that a lot of people are really asking these clients to come and ask us that their friends have actually got a refusal there just because they have done some sort of work which is not relevant, which was an Uber. Look, as far as you have met all the requirements which is listed under the state nomination or the regional nomination requirements, I believe the state would give you an the nomination, or they will give you an option to apply for the visa, and they will invite you. However, the limitation of the seats would obviously be one factor which everyone have to consider. So definitely, Tasmania would have a limitation to the number of people they can invite. That's where it is very important that if you could meet some additional requirements which state asked for, likely that they have mentioned that if someone is working in occupations which are in demand, like in aged care, in trade occupations, they would definitely prefer those applicants. So if you are applying based on study but simultaneously you're working as well, that's something which will benefit your application when you're putting for the regional nomination or the state nomination. So one of the requirements is that you should have to study for 2 years if you want to apply for a 190 visa. The second requirement for Tasmania is you can work for 6 months full time in an occupation which is open in their list. Now, I'll probably want to just differentiate here between what basically ACT requires and what Tasmania requires. So for ACT, they said that you have to have 6 months of full-time experience in an occupation open in their list, and that should be a nominated occupation. Now with Tasmania, what they are saying is it is okay if you are basically an accountant, but if you are working for 6 months in an occupation full-time in a list or in an occupation which is open in my occupation list, you are still eligible to apply for 190 visa. So they are really keen to get people, skilled occupations or, to work in occupations which are in demand in Tasmania. So if I am basically an accountant, I've worked for 6 months there as an accountant, I may not be eligible for applying for a 190. Instead, I will only be able to get a 491 visa just because accountant as an occupation is not open in their list. So pretty much Tasmanian state occupation list is what you can access, see what occupations are open there, and try and find, you know, a job for 6 months full time if your visa allows you to work there full time. So these are the 4 requirements, you know, for 2 each for 491 and for 190 visa for Tasmania. Again, now we are moving on to the next state, which is Northern Territory. So Northern Territory has also opened, just in the last couple of days before, on the 9th of December. And they've kept the requirements the same as they had, you know, before, but they have actually, you know, had made a few changes in terms of the skilled occupation list with them. So if you are willing to apply in Northern Territory for a 190, you pretty much have to study there for 2 years. Not that after you finish study, you pretty much can apply straight away, because state has they do request a few other things one has to maintain. You have to provide them your statement for the transactions while you have lived there to see, you know, to demonstrate that you have lived there. You have to prove it to them that your occupation, which you have got an assessment in, or you've studied there, has basically, you know, potential of jobs in Northern Territory. So when you're making an application, you have to demonstrate all these factors. But again, if you are really not clear of which state to consider, and you've got still your complete study period left, Northern Territory can be one of the options you can consider, because after 2 years of study, you can straight away apply for a 190 visa with Northern Territory. Okay, so 2 years of study you have to do. Again, you could do any study. It doesn't have to be in the nominated. I mean, you don't really have to study in the nominated occupation. So if you're moving from a different state, have already got a skill assessment, but still want to study there, you can always make an application after 2 years of study, which you could do any study, again, not in your nominated occupation. The other option to apply for is for 491. So they used to obviously give 489 for people who have worked before 6 months full time in their nominated occupation. So if I'm an accountant, I found a job as an accountant in Northern Territory. After 6 months of full-time work, I am eligible to apply there for a 491 visa. So pretty much, again, I'm just coding accounting as just an occupation. So if it is basically, if you have worked for 6 months full-time in your nominated occupation in Northern Territory, you are eligible to apply there for a 491 visa. So 2 choices. One is 2 years of study. Second is, working for 6 months full-time in nominated occupation. Now, be mindful that if you are applying for any option based on full-time work, you must have your visa. Your visa must have the conditions of you working full-time. So with Tasmania and Northern Territory, you have to work full-time. Then only you can apply. So now that's again for Northern Territory. Pretty much would want to make a mention again for would want to move down further with the South Australia state as well. So South Australia as a state has also come out with their requirements. Just a week before. They are basically keen on getting, they have made a lot of changes in their, nomination requirements to what they had before. So you have got a few choices of making an application depending your occupation is on the, nomination skill list, or it is basically on the supplementary skill list with the South Australia. So this is the similar way they had before, like they've got 2 lists depending on which list your occupation in, the requirements are being categorized. Now, if you are really keen to apply for most of the occupations in South Australia, they are willing to offer, 190 visa, provided you meet few of the requirements, they have specified. So what they are basically trying to say is that if someone who is willing to apply for 190, irrespective of the fact that they are not willing to, sponsor them for, if they're eligible for 491, there are specific set of requirements one has to meet, and they can be eligible to apply for 190. So if you are, the very first requirement for 190 visa for someone who's moving pretty much from interstate or applying as an onshore applicant, you are a high point applicant with at least 8 years of work experience in the nominated occupation or a closely related occupation and superior English. So they were mentioned that if your occupation is not available for high points nomination, you are not eligible to apply for a 190. So you have to have an occupation which should fall into the high points category. If you do not have, then you pretty much would not be eligible for applying for a 190 or 491 based on high points. Okay, so if only your occupation is acceptable, as in for a high points category occupation, then you can apply there based on that, and you can get for 190 visa as well. So again, 8 years of experience is what you still require in your nominated occupation or a closely related occupation, and you have to have superior English to be eligible to apply for that. You have worked in a skilled occupation in South Australia for last 12 months, which is a minimum 20 hours per week. Now this option can be, this is something which a lot of people can meet, in South Australia. So if you are basically applying for, any of the occupations there, be it trade, be it engineering or IT, and you have worked there for last 12 months, at least part-time, you're eligible to apply for 190 visa as well. So that's what they've specified, in their requirements for 190. You are a high-performing graduate, who has continued to reside in South Australia after the graduation and have completed one of the following qualifications from a South Australian public university in the last 2 years. So if you have been a high-performing graduate, where they consider of GPA score of 6 and above, and you have done that from a South Australian public university in the last 2 years, and so if you've done a PhD or a master's by research, that's one of the options, or a GPA of 6 above in master's by coursework, which has to be followed by a bachelor's also in South Australia. So if you have done a master's by coursework by studying bachelor's in some other state, they will not consider you. You have to do the bachelor's there, and then after that do master's there as well. Then you can be considered for 190 as a high performing graduate, and or pretty much first class honors or a GPA of 6 and above in a bachelor's degree. So someone who has done a bachelor's there and a high performing graduate, they are eligible for applying, the 190 state nomination visa. If you are an international graduate, pretty much for them, the definition of an international graduate is someone who has done their study for at least, for 1 year, they're eligible to apply for it. But other than being an international graduate of South Australia, you also have to work for 6 months, at least 40 hours a fortnight or 20 hours a week. So I have started in South Australia for a year, and then I've got 6 months of part-time experience after that. I can be eligible to apply for a 190 visa there. So these are the options. Then there is the last option of you are an international graduate of South Australia, resided in South Australia continuously for at least 5 years, and currently working for the last 3 months in a skilled occupation in South Australia. Now, they're not saying in your skilled occupation, you have to be working in any skilled occupation, but must be residing there for the last 5 years, and you must be a graduate from there. Okay. So these are the few options which will make you eligible for, 190 visa. Despite of the exceptions, I mean, these are just the exception scenarios for, if you meet any of this, you're still eligible to apply for 190. And we talk about some, standard occupations like accountants, engineers, IT people. So accountants, if they're a graduate from there, pretty much they require to have, 1 year of experience post that, and then they're eligible for a 491. Or if you are pretty much applying, based on the experience, then they have to have 3 years of experience. Now, one thing which I believe a lot of people are not clear about is, for occupations, they are asking that you have to have experience of 3 years. In that case, if you do not have that experience being met, you have to be working there for at least 3 months in your nominated occupation. And that's where then you can obviously, waive off the requirement of 3 years of experience, but you must be working in your occupation for at least 3 months after that. Okay. And otherwise, for other people who do not have a requirement of 3 years of experience or 3 to 5 years of experience in South Australia, they can be working in any of the skilled occupation which is on the South Australian list after they finish their studies. Earlier, we have also heard from clients that a few of the applicants who have actually studied nursing, diploma of nursing there, they have been given that option that their experience requirement has also been waived. So again, that's again a choice available with South Australian applicants. But again, there are quite a few options. If you're not literally clear of, since you missed some part of it, you can always come to our office. So we've got an office in South Australia as well. You can visit that office if you're there, or if you want to contact the Melbourne office if you're here, then obviously we can advise you on all these options which I've discussed over this live session, and you can use consider one of the state nomination requirements for yourself. So again, now what's left is WA, Western Australia. They have also opened their requirements recently, and pretty much with Western Australia, they have got 2 skill lists with them as well. One basically is for the general people who can apply, based if they have got their occupation in the list, and people have got a job offer there. Not a lot of occupations are available in that. Mostly some few medical occupations and nursing occupations are available. But then a lot of people do apply in Western Australia based on the graduate list occupations. So Western Australia have made these options easy for applicants from this year, while they have introduced that if you are in Western Australia, you have studied there for 2 years now, which you could also study any sort of trade course, or pretty much, the qualification can be at the vet level, or you can do a diploma there as well. All those qualifications for 2 years, followed by a job offer there for 6 months, or pretty much 6 months of experience in Australia, will get you an option to apply for a regional or state nomination there. So WA definitely have eased out the requirements. They have added a few, vocational courses into the list of occupations, based on which you can obviously apply for the regional or the state nomination there. And this requirements for experience or job offer was actually 1 year before, which has reduced down. And the requirement of study was basically for higher education only, which has been reduced to vocational courses again, and a lot of courses or occupations have been added to their list as well. So if you are in WA, started for 2 years, and definitely have got a job offer there for valid for next 6 months, or have got 6 months of experience in Australia in the occupation, nominated occupation, you are eligible to apply for the regional state nomination for WA. Now that's pretty much, I've covered most of the regional areas, for the state nominations which are open at this moment, which you can apply for. Queensland have already closed the 190 visa, and for 491, a lot of IT, accounting, and occupations have already been closed with them. But again, if you are in Queensland, have got a job offer for 3 months, pretty much you've worked in your occupation and then have a job offer further down there, you're eligible to apply for a 491. But as I said, a lot of occupations such as accountant, all the occupations of accountancy, for IT, for a lot of occupations, they have removed that. They're not going to sponsor anyone for 491, and 190 is already been closed. So I've covered all the states, just because I believe our viewers are from different states. People are just getting confused of which state they want to go into. Look, there is no state which is good or bad. When people come and ask us, clients come and ask us that which one would you recommend. Now you have to see what basically suits you. If you are really keen to study further, consider that as an option for yourself. If you are not really keen on studying, and you are really keen to, you're having a 485 visa or work visa with yourself, and you can work in any of the states in your nominated occupation, which most of the states literally ask for, you can apply for these occupations as well. You can apply for those state nominations. I mean, the good thing is for people who are living in Victoria, or for people who are willing to move to Victoria regional, that Victoria is open. And again, for ACT, I've mentioned that engineers, trade applicants should consider that as a place to be, because that is going to open the door for you, or give you an edge over the other applicants who would apply for. Alrighty, so I would be taking some questions now for from viewers who have actually put in their comments here. Okay, so who do we have first here? Alrighty, 190 New South Wales software engineering occupation, how many points required? Tom H. Tom, as I mentioned, if you are in New South Wales and you're looking for a 190, pretty much the last invitations they have given was for people who have got 90 plus points only. And so pretty much if you have got 90 points or above, then pretty much there is a possibility that you can see an invitation, but that's only going to happen if you're in another state, probably until December, if they would come out with another round. They've actually invited people end of last month, and they've invited quite a few people after the announcement they have made that they are not going to invite people from other states. So if they will conduct a round in this month, definitely people who have got higher points will only be picked, considering the fact that there would be a lot of people who would be waiting for an invitation from NSW. But again, as I said, a decent score of 95 is somewhere you can expect an invitation coming. So 90 to 95 is what you can expect an invitation on. Ishrat Jahan asked me, can you please shed light on the family sponsored 491, how much time needed and how many points to be scored for that purpose? Ishrat, which occupation are we referring to? Look, accountants have not been invited even for 105 points for family sponsorship. So again, anything other than accountancy, we've got invitations for software engineers, we've got invitations for other other occupations in IT and engineering as well, and wherein people have got 100 points, they have been invited. So I see that going forward, this might be for 95 points as well, that they would invite people if they would have too many people applying for the 491 visas. And look, as I've mentioned in the beginning of the video, they are actually emphasizing to push more of 491. So possible, it is very much possible for government to pretty much invite a lot of people on 491 rather than inviting a lot on 189, which has happened in this round, so that they could still spread out in the regional parts itself, because Now, for a family sponsorship, again, even Melbourne doesn't really come in. You have to have some family member living outside the Melbourne area, and again, all the metropolitans, outside metropolitans cities, which is Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne. So they're not really, so they're literally following what they've talked, that they would want people to apply 491, and definitely 95 to 100 is a good score in which you can expect an invitation to come in future months. Salman Mani, can you please explain, if someone has already got 75 points under accounting occupation, which state suits them? Salman, I've mentioned that if you are in Victoria, definitely look for a job offer from them. For accountants, this is one of, as I said, it's a gold mine that you pretty much could look for a job offer, apply for jobs and try and find it. I know it's not that easy as it sounds, but again, getting an option at 50 points to apply is also not something which you could get elsewhere, because every other state which you would think of going to would have a lot of accountants already there. So again, I've given options for Tasmania, I've talked about Northern Territory, I've talked about all the states. You could look at which state would suit you, if not Victoria then, because obviously Victoria is one of the easiest states if you get a job offer. Otherwise, other states which are giving easier options I've talked about is Tasmania, could be Canberra as well, but you obviously have to live there to study, work, or whichever option you possibly want to go ahead with. Wazir Muhammad Yunus, ICT security specialist, is it available in Tasmania? Wazir, you pretty much have to check the Tasmanian state occupation list. If you've got a job offer there, as I said, then there is a possibility that you can apply there, for 6 months of full-time work, and then you can apply for 190. Otherwise, if you're looking for 491, it doesn't really matter whether you have the occupation open in the list or not. If you've worked for 6 months in any skilled occupation, or if you have started 1 year, you are still eligible to apply, therefore, based as a security specialist as an occupation. Naveen Ailavadi, chances of 491 family occupation 105. Naveen, that's what I said. They've not invited accountants for 105 either. So this looks like, accounting as an occupation definitely, is basically struggling at the moment. So people should start working about, on other alternate choices, which I mentioned about the state nominations or regional nominations. Other than that, Victorian job offer is from the regional is what you should look at getting, because 105 they've not invited. In future it might happen, but again, the chances are pretty less, for them to invite an accountant. How many points required for accountant in WA for 190, Dr. Sonali? Look, as I said, in terms of making a state nomination application, it is never about points when they've invited people. So now they have, whatever the last invitation happened with the with 75 points or 80 points, where the accountants have been invited when they have met the requirements of being graduates and have a job offer, then definitely you could see yourself getting invitations with, we've not seen an invitation happening, but you could see the last invitation round to whatever points they've invited. At least that score is what you have to look at in getting an invitation. And I'm repeating myself with accountants. The competition across all the states is very high for accountants, which literally means that you have to obviously go an extra mile in meeting the requirements of, even if it's the state nomination, because the state would have to compare between 5 applicants, 10 applicants who are applying for the same occupation, which would be obviously accounting itself. View 85 points, chef, good enough to get 189. Should we move to NSW to get 190 on 90 points and job experience? Viru, as I said, for 190 state nomination, the requirements are yet to be rolled out by New South Wales, and most likely it would be, the requirements would be that you have to be living and working there, because they have already came out with the requirements for other occupations before, such as accountant, for IT applicants, that if you are living there and working for 1 year, you're eligible for the state nomination with high points. So pretty much, if they are saying they're not going to invite people from other states, they would invite people who have lived in their state itself. Now, how many months you have to be living before you're applying? Have you required to be working in your occupation or not is of question, which they would be able to release out sooner, and we'll be able to tell you the requirements accordingly. But again, 85 points if you have on 189, I don't see a possibility of getting 189 invitations sooner, just because the invitations with the change points would automatically happen at 90 or above points only, because 10 points have been additionally given to single applicants, skilled partner applicants already. Avansha, I have moved to Adelaide from Melbourne. What are the chances of getting PR in the state? Vanja, what occupation are you? What are you there for? You have to mention that. Are you there to study? Are you there to work? And what occupation? What is your nominated occupation? One thing I would like to mention about state nomination based on for graduates of South Australia. Except South Australia is one state which requires you to study in your nominated occupation itself. So if you're considering to study there for 1 year and then they have 3 months of experience in your nominated occupation to be eligible to apply, then you need to make sure that you would study in your nominated occupation itself, which is not the case with the Northern Territory, not the case with Tasmania, not the case with the ACT, Canberra. So you have to make sure if you are going to South Australia, do not go for studying any course, and you would want to apply there after after a year as a graduate or after completing the requirements as a graduate, because you have to then study in your own nominated occupation in which you have a skill assessment. Harun Phone, I have graded my master's course to PhD. Can I claim points for my master's study? Pretty much the question is gone. Yes, pretty much if you've done masters, whatever the qualification you have completed, you can claim points for that, which is your highest qualification, and the time you would be able to complete your PhD, you could additionally add up the points for your PhD as well. 190 NSW requirements for motor mechanic. Lukman, it's yet to be rolled out. Lukman, again, as I said, most likely they would come and ask for residency in New South Wales and experience. Again, I don't want to really quote you for the requirements now until they would really come out with the requirements. So if the requirements are that you have to be living there, that's pretty much would be the requirements, because they said they are not going to invite people from other states. So you have to be living there, working there, probably in your field is going to be a requirement to know. It's something which we'll get to know, and we would be doing another live session, or we can put that on our Facebook page and you can have a look on that. So Pritham, Master of Secondary Teaching, has a very high occupation ceiling, still yet to be filled, 8,000 places. Is that a good option? I'm looking for a 189 subclass in 2 years time after the course. Currently residing in Sydney. Pritham, you look, 189 visa altogether is actually the number of seats have gone down, and they're going to stick to that number of seats for the next 4 years. So what you need to know is the points requirement for any occupation, irrespective, it's a pro rata, it's teaching, nursing, trade. Now you must see the ceilings of trade occupations is pretty higher as well, and nursing as an occupation is pretty high, but still they have, department has not invited nurses for 189. Now every state required nurses as well, so means overall skill gap for nurses is very high in Australia, despite of the fact they're not giving away 189 visas to nurses who doesn't have 90 points or 95 points even, or whatever the points they're inviting at. So the occupation is not literally of importance at this stage, which the visa subclass is what you should have to look at. So if you are doing that study for 2 years, I would recommend either you do that if you're doing it in Victoria. Obviously have 2 more years of experience to be eligible to apply for the state nomination, because that can happen then at lower points. The opportunity of increasing your points with some occupations is restricted, because a professional year program, say for example, is only available for a few occupations that are IT, accounting and engineering. Or when you need to apply for experience, or if you see you want to get experience as a teacher, you have to have a registration with that state. So if the requirements are met, only then you are eligible to apply or gain points in that occupation for 189. And that's the case. I would recommend, state nomination is a much better option. Be it whichever. So if you're in Sydney definitely is going to be, or that occupation is required there as well. So if you would meet the requirements of the Sydney state nomination while living there or working there, you might be eligible for the state nomination from them itself. But 189, it is going to be the same, I believe, the way it is now, and not going to get too down in terms of points requirement. Aman Gavi, what are the chances of getting 491 in Tasmania when I have 18 electronics engineering now and have after state sponsorship will get 15 more for 491? Aman, what exactly is the requirement you are meeting in Tasmania? Are you studying there or working there? You have not mentioned that. But again, the chances, as I said, they have not set the criteria for someone who has got high points would be eligible to, would be more eligible, to someone who is having lesser points would be lesser, would not be. But yes, the differentiating factor would depend on what sort of study you are doing there, because the state would consider your commitment there if you're doing a bachelor's or a master's, or you're doing a diploma there. Now they've set the minimum requirements, but someone who has met higher requirements would definitely see more probability of getting an invitation. And that's why they said 1 year study 491, 2 year study 190. Means they also understand that if you have lived there for 2 years, your commitments is going to be much more than studying for 1 year. And points could be one of the criteria they could consider in future as well, just because if they have to differentiate between two applicants who have done the same course, then someone who might have higher points or who might have a job which is in a field in their state would get an advantage over the other applicant. So you're studying there. So pretty much if you're studying there for 1 year because you're applying for a 491, then the points can be one of the criteria. But again, as I said, this is not just a differentiating factor. They could be, I likely mentioned that you have to have a job which is in pretty much as an aged care worker or a trade there might benefit you more, in order to get 491 vis-a-vis to someone who has done the same sort of study with you, like a diploma of leadership or management over there. Fiona Patel, can you please explain about 190 NT? Fiona, Northern Territory has kept it pretty simple. You go there to study for 2 years, can do any study, and after 2 years you can apply for a 190 visa provided you met the minimum points requirement, provided the occupation you have occupation you're applying in has got potential of jobs in Northern Territory. So that is to be proved by means of providing them evidences that these jobs are available, are in demand in Northern Territory. But again, 2 years of study could be any study. You can apply based on that. Mars, hi, could you please explain about the STEM points, who is eligible for this and from when? Is there any state-wise requirement? Mars, the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the additional points which would declare that STEM qualifications would get 10 extra points. That was only meant for study, which was masters by research, not basically for coursework. So if you have done some research study, a PhD study in any of these occupations or qualifications of STEM, you have an advantage that you get 10 additional points for that as well. But again, it's not for masters by coursework, even though if your masters by coursework has one of the subjects you've done research on, but the qualification has to be categorically masters by research, and then you could get additional points for that. Kashmir Sandhu, EOI updated last week with 85 points as motor mechanic, 190, living in New South Wales. What are the chances? Kashmir, again, if you have met the requirements for 190 for New South Wales, they pretty much would invite you. Again, now they have not rolled out the requirements, but 85 looks like a decent score for you to get as for this occupation for the state nomination. And the last invitation round which has happened, they've invited people at 85 points as well, which are for the occupation. So I am hopeful. I don't know when have you updated that you are, but they have invited a few people in the past as well with these points. So you're hopeful if there is a round which is going to happen in December, you might get an invitation for that occupation. Atir Askari, electrical engineering is a pro rata or a non-pro rata occupation. Atir, electrical engineering is a non-pro rata occupation, and again now over the last few months there has not been much of difference in the invitation for points with whether it is a pro rata or a non-pro rata occupation. Yes, there has been a difference in the time period for the people who have been invited, because in the last round they've invited people until a specific date, say for example until June of 3rd, when they've invited people for a non-pro rata, whereas occupations such as pro rata we've been invited until March, April or May only. So that's the difference, and this difference may continue depending on how many points you're applying with. Reason Casey, what is the best option for enrolled nurse looking for 491? Enrolled nurses looking for 491, if they've got an occupation, if they've obviously got a skill assessment, Canberra can be the best bet for you, because that occupation is open in Canberra for now. So as I said, the advantage of having 20 extra points for the matrix will be one of the factors, which could get you the invitation from that state for 491 pretty quickly over other states where you pretty much have to go, to find a job offer, say in Victoria, or have to go to study there or work there in some other states. On what basis NT gives 491 or 190? Kritika Haldwani. Kritika, again, this depends on how many people are applying for a specific occupation in a state. So if I have studied for 2 years in Northern Territory, the possibility of me getting 190 is very high. But again, if they've got so many applicants who have done 2 years of study there, then eventually the deciding factor would be what level of study I have done there. But again, in terms of experience for 6 months in NT, they most likely give 491 itself. And the deciding factor again is the occupation. How many applicants have applied in that state on that occupation? and what are the points that people are applying at. Is that occupation actually is in demand in that state or not? So those are the deciding factors, because NT does state that if your occupation is on the skilled occupation list but not onto their list, but you're still working there for 6 months full time, they would still invite you for 491. So that's the deciding factor. Again, if an occupation is on their list and you've done 6 months of work, they may possibly, again, they literally emphasize on 491 only, but they can give you 190 as well with that. Leroy is a graduate of social work, supposed to have 2 years of experience on 190 Victoria nomination. Yes, Leroy, that's required for the state nomination, and then only possibly you can apply for state nomination for Victoria. Now, I would pretty much it's just that we have to obviously end the live session for now. Now, we have got a seminar on these requirements happening at our Melbourne office, the one on the Collins Street, on the 20th of December from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. So if you have missed out on any of these requirements, you're most welcome to attend that. There would be a link under the video, which you have to use to basically, register yourself for that event. But again, if you are still not clear, you can come down for a one-to-one consultation with me or any other migration agent here. Give us a call on 0396023435. My name is Kunal at Aussizz. I've got a Facebook profile. If you want to send a Facebook friend request, want to see the updates coming up on our Facebook page, you're most welcome to do that. The message I would want to give to all of you is that you pretty much have to start working at the requirements for the state or regional nominations if you are not making enough points. Now, the options for occupations which are pro rata would obviously be limited in every state. So you need to make sure if you're getting a job offer in regional Victoria, work on it sooner than later. Or if you're looking forward to move to a different region state, then plan it as soon as possible so that you could look at for 491 and 190 options. The number of seats are definitely higher for 190 and 491, which literally means that these people will get invited for 491 and 190. So don't give up your hopes onto that, and we'll try and answer the comments by replying back to your comments into the comment section itself if your question has not been answered. Or as I said, I've given you the office number. You can always give us a call, ask a question, and we are happy to help you. And don't forget to register for that seminar, which we have got on the 20th of December, CBD office, level 2 at between 3 to 5. And thank you for being a part of this live session. And thank you there. See you. Bye bye.